The Pod Network Entertainment.
When you're taking that much guilt, shame, and fear, and you kind of tend to hide in your little bubble, but then when you poke that bubble and let it out and see, oh wait, we're all going through this together.
Yeah. And so you stop hiding in the shadow or standing alone in the dark, and instead you start holding everybody else's hand.
Welcome to Project Loving Myself, the podcast that empowers you to put yourself first, love yourself deeply, and reclaim your power. I'm your host, Sanaya Gurnamal, and I'd love to have you join me each week as we dive into candid conversations, eye-opening insights, and aha moments to help you unlock the incredible power of self-love. It's time to let go of self-doubt, conquer your fears, and embrace the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one you have with yourself. Because how you love yourself teaches others how to love you, shaping every relationship in your life. So are you ready to become your own top priority, biggest fan, and loudest cheerleader? Let's take this journey together. You are loved.
Welcome back to Project Loving Myself, the space where we get honest about love, healing, and the messy magic of being human. Today we're going to talk about something we all do: overthinking. The what-ifs, the spirals, the mental gymnastics you could probably put on your resume at this point. And who better to unpack all of this than Joelle, host, content creator, storyteller, and the heart behind Paano Kung, the hit podcast that has become a haven for overthinkers and the what-if generation. Joelle has this beautiful way of turning emotional spirals into self-awareness and flirting moments into full-on life lessons. I am so excited to have you here, Joelle, today. So let's get started.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Thank you so much for having me. I was saying earlier, absolutely surreal being here. I was listening already to Project Loving Myself way before I started my podcast. I remember that was, I think, 2021.
Yeah.
And it's an honor to be here.
Honestly,
I'm happy to share this space.
It's like a full circle moment, right? Because you've been a student, you've been in classes. I ran into you, sometime, and we're like, oh my God, we're actually in the same studio, and we have to turn this into an opportunity for us to connect and chat and see how far you've come since you and I, last connected. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited about our topic today too, because overthinking is something I know not only me, but a whole lot of people are doing, and it keeps them stuck in these cycles. And maybe today they'll get something that will help them break out of that. So I'm going to jump right into the beginning. Do you remember, Joelle, the moment when you realize, all right, life and love aren't as simple as I thought it is, or I thought it would be. So I need a totally different way of listening to myself and knowing what I want. So what was that kind of like aha moment where you realize I need a different set of skills?
I think what was interesting about my journey with life and love is having had grown up watching all these Disney happily ever after 2000 rom-coms films where they always showed that. I always thought that it was complicated. There was a lot of drama. There had to be a lot of things that you had to go through to be able to find your one true love or have that happy ending. Yeah. And I think so it was realizing later on in life, after having to go through so many heartbreaks, that I would willingly put myself in, realizing and questioning, wait, did all of this actually have to happen? Did I have to look for drama in my life to be able to say that, ooh, this is the happy ending I want? But what is happy ending even?
Right. Or do we ever get to an ending, right?
That's true.
Because like the movies, they end at the happy ending, but then they don't tell you about what's going to happen after that, right?
Exactly.
That's when they like start fighting, and there's like parents getting involved, and there's a whole bunch of other like drama that comes in between, and nobody ever talks about that.
I know, we never know that maybe after that, a happy ending a week after they break up.
Like Prince Charming cheats on Cinderella, like for all you know what I mean? So it's so interesting because you mentioned the Disney movies. And I remember, of course, like also kind of falling into that whole idea of the prince and rescuing me from my life and so on. But for me, the one movie that really did it was the one where Tom Cruise tells Renee Zellweger, "You complete me."
Oh my God.
I don't know if you remember that scene. And I was like, oh my God, someday someone's going to come and say, "I complete them." And then we're going to get married and live happily ever after.
Riding
So
off into the
I
sunset.
know, right? You walk off into the sunset. And of course, you know, it doesn't always work out that way. But tell me about you. So tell me about, you had all these ideas, and so you too went through a lot of difficulties. And what you're saying is you started to question, does it always have to be this hard or complicated or, you know, stressful?
Yeah.
So what did you figure out? Like what came out of that?
Yeah, so I had to look into a lot of the patterns of my life. And that's why Theta Healing helped a lot, because that was during the pandemic, which was, you know, where the world actually stopped. I was right in the middle of a big heartbreak. And, you know, when you're heartbroken and you kind of wish that the world stops.
Yeah.
I kind of got that during the pandemic. A lot of things happened then, but it was nice in a way that I did just have that time to sit down and process the things that I've been avoiding, or that I would say that I haven't had the chance to kind of sit down and figure out what is wrong with me, or what have I been doing? What have I been doing that would always lead me to the same outcome, where I always would find myself heartbroken? Something has to change. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing this again and again.
Right. So you noticed your patterns.
Yeah.
That's what happened. You started to notice you were doing the same thing over and over again, like Groundhog Day, right? You were like reliving the story.
It's just different phase.
Different phase, different person, you know, all of that. But like you were back to square one every single time, right?
Yeah.
And that is when you went on the search for something that could help you, you know, deal with this, right? The healing and Theta Healing. That's how our center, came into your space. I know that. And, you know, isn't it so interesting that it takes these heartbreaks, these really major, almost rock bottom moments to call into question everything we believe to be true about life and maybe even about ourselves, right? And it takes these hard moments and, you know, these challenges for us to maybe reroute, make different choices, learn a new skill, spend time discovering ourselves, connecting with ourselves. And so we're almost kind of answering the question that we started with, which is, do we have to go through all the drama? Do we have to go through all the pain and suffering? So if these pain and suffering moments help us grow, then is it worth it? What are your thoughts?
Oh, man, I've been thinking about that a lot actually lately. Like, does it always have to, you always have to go through this earth shattering, or at least it feels like it, to be able to push us forward? But I think, and it sucks to have to think about that when you're like, oh, I'm going to have to go through some challenging thing again. It feels like riding a roller coaster where I don't know where I'm going to go. But then, as difficult, challenging, and scary as it feels, I think having had gone through these cycles and facing these things, there's always just that one belief that feels true, is that it'll always work out at some point, in some way, shape, or form. I may not see it now. It sucks that I can't see the end of it, but I guess that's the point, that I shouldn't be seeing the end of it yet. I should fully ride that roller coaster and see where it goes. And I think that's the magic there.
It's like you will walk off into the sunset. We don't know when, but eventually you'll get there. And I think that is what resilience is, right? It's recognizing that no matter how many times you hit a down moment on that roller coaster, it'll go up again, right? And you will scream with excitement. Even though like your stomach will like fall and you're like, oh my God, I'm dying on this roller coaster. It'll go up and it'll be exciting again, you know? So I think building that confidence, that courage, and that resilience that I can do this and it's going to be okay at the end of this. I think that's why we have to go through these moments, right?
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't know that if we didn't get through it over and over and over
That's
again.
true. And I think what helps a lot in riding this roller coaster, you're not alone. And that's the beauty of it, knowing that help will always come at the right time.
Yes.
Whether that's like sharing a link to that random podcast that I got sent. I remember it's just talking to the right people at the right time that will lead us to whichever ride that we're meant to ride.
Yes.
And even if it feels so chaotic, it's just wonderful knowing that, hey, it's gonna end. Might as well make it fun and pick up as much as you could.
Yeah, along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of podcasts, like you got sent this random podcast and then you started your own podcast.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself from where you were to now helping other people navigate their own kind of overthinking era, their what if days? So talk to me about that.
I think there was a lot of shame that came with the decisions that I made when I was essentially self-destructing at a certain point, when, leading up to everything and seeing how I was putting myself in harm's way, and going through all those experiences.
Would you call it self-sabotage, Joelle?
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
right? That's something I think a lot of people are doing, and they don't realize that they're the ones actually, causing themselves to have to go through pain.
Yeah, it took a lot of that to see, oh, wait, I'm doing this all to myself. And there was a lot of shame in that because, hey, there was a voice in my head that was saying, hey, you should know better. You should know that you weren't supposed to do this. This was hurtful, not just to you, but to other people.
Yeah.
And that consumed me, the guilt and the shame of making all these hurtful decisions that affected others and myself. And I think everything just fell into place where I could make that decision to open up and kind of take back that power because of all the shame I felt that I was carrying and the guilt. And if I talked about it more, if I was able to break out of it, then it didn't feel as big of a cloud weighing over me.
Yeah.
And by opening up and sharing my story in that way, I got to find people who were also going through the same things. And thankfully, in a way, we found comfort.
Yeah.
Like sharing my story and hearing their stories as well, and in how some tiny way it's changed the course of how they would make even the smallest decisions. That was how I guess I got to dissipate the clouds.
And you know what's so interesting? What happened to you, though it may not have been intentional, is really the process of healing, right? So we all have this baggage, stuff that we are dealing with, and everybody has something. You might have periods in your life where it feels like everything is wonderful, and those are amazing periods. But at some point or the other, you are going to have to learn something, some lesson, some skill. You're going to have to grow, and this is how we grow. So the first step is always seeing it for what it is. So in your case, you talked about becoming aware of this dark cloud of shame and, like, I think you said fear and maybe guilt that was like hanging all over you, above you. So it's kind of like you saw it for what it is. And then the next step was like, okay, what am I going to do about it? And this is very cliche, but it's really true. It's about turning pain into your power, right? And you talked about that power is like you started to share about what you were carrying. And in sharing it, you took ownership of it. You took responsibility of it. You started to become more accountable for what you're carrying. And then you started sharing it with other people. And when other people resonated and also confirmed that maybe they've been going through that or they shared their own experiences, there was healing in that, right? There was that connection and there was healing and there was power and there was safety because you're not the only one, right? Other people also are carrying the same kind of things.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot knowing that you're not so alone, even if you think you are, especially in isolation. Oh, especially when you're taking that much guilt, shame, and fear, and you kind of tend to hide in your little bubble. But then when you poke that bubble and let it out and see, oh, wait, we're all going through this together.
Yeah. And so you stop hiding in the shadow or standing alone in the dark, and instead you start holding everybody else's hand. And that's what your podcast became, right? It was like a form of healing and therapy and, also helping everybody else go through those similar kinds of experiences in a way that they feel less lonely, right? Which is beautiful.
I know it's been such a wonderful ride seeing that all those little decisions would come to that. And even for just a question as short as Paano Kung, what if, and finding all the possibilities there as well.
Yeah. And if you hadn't gone through all of that, maybe this podcast would have never come to be. And all those people that you are helping and connecting to may not have you, right? And what you shared to help them in their own journey. So, it's kind of like everything has a purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, tell me about this emotionally intense era of your life. Are you still in it? Is it, is it over? Where are you? Where are you in that journey? What have been your biggest lessons that you can kind of draw out today about love, self-worth, and choosing yourself, even when it can be pretty uncomfortable, right?
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting that you asked that question, because that emotionally turbulent era was about like 5 to 7 years ago. And I could feel, knowing that everything is a cycle, in a way, having had gone through the processes of finding the things that I needed, having the tools to help me deal with that, then I always kind of anticipated, I don't know if it's a little bit of fear, it probably is. Yeah, no, it's definitely some type of fear coming in that, oh my goodness, how am I going to handle this if it happens again, when it happens again, or when there's a different challenge that would force me to do another level up and expand in some way. So as far as healing, I think I'm in that. I think I'm starting a new cycle again.
Okay.
And
so it's the next layer, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people tell me like, Sanaya, does this end? Do we like keep working on ourselves? What happens? And I'm like, it really is an onion peel, right? You peel off the first layer and things get really good. You notice like the shift. You notice you're happier, your relationships are better, opportunities are coming in, and then you hit another wall and you're like, oh shoot, now I'm back down again. And then you need to know, what do I work on next? Like, what is that next layer I got to peel? And so it's never like you get to the end of it, but at some point it shifts. I've noticed it shifts from getting rid of problems and baggage to who do I want to be next? Who do I want to be? So it's more like forward thinking, it's like it stops being about the challenges and it starts being about what's the next level of me.
right.
So there is a shift. So where are you? If like when I bring that into the conversation, where do you feel you are with that?
Yeah, I definitely feel it's like, okay, what's next? Who am I turning into in this next cycle of my life?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of uncertainty there that
Of
I'm still
course.
processing. There is a lot of fear and a lot of paano kungs and what ifs, definitely, especially feeling that I've closed that cycle of helping people and answering all their paano kung questions based on what I went through. Because a lot of my stories, I would say, it's always based on some insights that I've had to face and all the research and everything and asking help from other people. And that's what it feels like now, coming into, okay, who's next? What next? What is the next era that we're coming in? I have my little toolbox and I'm opening up and seeing, okay, what new tools do I need for this? What are the next challenges that I know I'm going to have to face again? Because if I want some type of growth, if I want something new, that's what I see coming in.
Yeah.
And it's so scary. I feel like I'm in line. If we're just into the whole roller coaster conversation, I feel like I'm riding the bigger girl ride and just anticipating the next ride.
and your stomach is starting to tighten. You're like, oh my God, I'm a little nervous, and they're butterflies.
Yeah.
But I heard something very interesting. The difference between fear and excitement is how you breathe. So it's the same thing. When you're excited about something, there's a little bit of there's like the
Feels
tickle.
similar, very similar,
it's actually the similar thing. But when you're coming from a place of fear, you stop breathing because it's panic and you're afraid. So you cut off the breath. But in excitement, you continue, if you allow yourself to breathe, it'll turn into excitement. And I remember, I think I read that somewhere. And it has really stuck with me, Joel, because I've learned that in the moments of greatest fear are also in the same moments of the greatest growth. And I need to find excitement in that because I love to learn. I love to change. I love to like expand myself, as I know you do, because you've been doing that, consistently for quite a big part of your journey now. So I love that part. I know you love that part. It's just now like teaching our mind that what we are afraid of, what feels challenging or bigger than us, is actually the opportunity. It's the next big step. It's the leap. You know what I mean? And the bigger it is, I think the more nervous and more fearful we get. And so just breathing, like take a breath, one step at a time. That's really worked for me.
I love that you mentioned that it's the biggest difference between fear and excitement is the breathing part. Because I've heard that before, that excitement and fear kind of feel like they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And then instead of just shifting it and saying, okay, I'm excited, maybe you could also help your body in believing that as well and feeling safe in the fact that, hey, it actually can be something that's exciting with more things that you couldn't even imagine would happen.
Yeah. I've been in moments, Joelle, where I'm doing something, right? And I'm like, why did I put myself in this position? I don't need to. I was fine without it,
right?
And it's obviously an amazing opportunity, but I'm just like, oh my God, just getting to that is like really heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, because I have to grow out of my comfort zone. I have to do something differently. And change is hard. It's not always easy, As much as you love change and as much as you love to learn, real change happens when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not the most pleasant experience because it's new. It's like, ooh, where do we put ourselves in here?
And you're like stretching, that's the word that I feel like just describes it best for me, is like I feel like I'm stretching and it's like it's tight and it's like uncomfortable and I have to stretch out like a butterfly out of like, a cocoon. And, we just have to kind of remember what's on the other side of that.
That there's always something amazing that we could never even see coming.
Yes.
And what I've noticed as well, because I think we also have that choice, right? We always have that choice to stay where we are and what's comfortable and what feels safe. But I think there will always be like a tiny whisper that'll get louder and louder. That'll get you to go, is this really where it ends? Is this where you want to stay in this chapter? And then it will start shaking everything around you.
And the funny thing is, this happens to everybody, right? But most people drown it out. They drown it out by getting distracted with sometimes things like alcohol, partying, drugs, social media, like addictions. Any kind of addictions, a lot of people, they kind of go into that because they aren't able to cope with the voice, like that voice in their head that tells them they're not where they should be, And it might sound very negative instead of positive. And the other thing that happens is a lot of people, they're afraid. They're afraid to kind of trust their own inner instinct, right? And so they kind of drown that voice out or they bury it. And I know for a lot of people, depression and anxiety is really a way of coping or drowning out that inner calling that's saying, you need to make a change. You need to, get out of this relationship, or you need to quit your job, And I had somebody, actually, one of my podcast listeners, who wrote to me and said, Sanaya, I've been in corporate for pretty much all my life. I have a son, I have a husband, and they're both working. So I kind of like what I got from that is she has a cushion, right? She has a husband, she has a child, they're both working, they're both doing well. It's not like they're depending on her. And she's like, but what if I quit and what if I fail? And what if, it doesn't work out? What if, she had a lot of what ifs, your specialty. And I told her, I wrote back to her and I said, but what if it does work out? And what if everything you wanted and more will happen after you quit your job, And she's given her whole life to this job, so it's not like just a couple of years. It's been like decades, And I said, what if you never take this opportunity? And then you look back and said, what would have happened if I did? So I flipped the what if. from the negative to the positive, which, by the way, I'm sure you've done that too, is a great way of moving from that negative thinking to the more positive thinking. Instead of what if the worst would happen, well, what if the best would happen? And this one listener is probably thousands of them out there struggling with the same thing. So what would you say to someone, who's very afraid to listen to that voice, that inner instinct, the ground shaking and everything. Yeah. Everything telling them that they need to do something, but they're so afraid they're trying to run away from it. So what would you tell that person?
What I was thinking about what's on the other side of what if, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen on the other side. It could be the best, it could be the worst, but the whole point is we don't know what's going to happen. So if we're spending all our energy worrying about something we don't know,
right?
Like, why not just focus on the best thing that could happen? Because we don't even know what's going to happen either way.
Yeah.
So it's at least believing that something will come out of it, that it will be for what is best for us, where there will be so much amazing things, because you don't know what's going to happen. So might as well just believe in something that will make you feel safer.
Right. I mean, it's like, it's random, right?
Right.
Either I can believe that it's going to all turn to like shit.
Yeah.
Or I can be like, everything's going to work out.
Exactly.
It's our choice. And either way, we have no idea. So let's pick the one that works for us.
Yeah.
But I think what's hard for people is uncertainty. Ultimately, people want to be certain that if I quit this job, that it is going to work out for me. Or if I take this job offer, I'm going to be, completely happy in this new career. Everybody wants certainty. And because of this need for certainty, a lot of times we don't even take any action. We stay stuck because we're like, we don't know. So maybe we're just better with what's familiar, even though it's not the best. It's not great. It's not even making us happy.
Yeah.
But at least we know what we have.
Okay, we have everything in order.
Right?
Kind of, yeah.
Rather than taking the risk of what if I just fall flat on my face? And I know that's something I've heard from a lot of my students and clients. So how would you approach that?
One of my favorite exercise when it comes to things like that, because we do love thinking about the worst, because I think thinking about the worst that could happen kind of, okay, if I know or I anticipate what could happen in the worst way possible, then maybe I'll know what to do.
Yeah.
If it happens. So I think at least what has helped a lot is talking to our future self, and what would make our future self proud? What would be the choices that would make us, if we zoomed in, fast forwarded 40 years after, and we're on our deathbed, when we think about this moment, what would our future self be proud of thinking that we did?
Yeah.
And just making that choice.
I think that's also so great because it pulls us out of the overthinking that we're stuck in the present, right? Because we don't really think also about what would happen next. We're just kind of really fixated on the now, right? And then like, if I do this, then, it's the unknown. We kind of get stuck there. We don't go, well, it could be this and then this and this. And then, 10 years down the line or 40 years down the line, I could be like, oh my God, I lived my best life.
Yeah.
So we don't go that far. We're just like in the now being like, I can't make a decision. And there's a lot of the what if and the negative, thoughts. And that's, I think, where a lot of the overthinking keeps us stuck. So what you're saying is don't overthink it. Just go forward into what could be. Yeah. Or like reflecting back at what you'd be proud of.
Yeah. I think that's helped a lot as far as like overthink. If you're already in the overthinking space, because when we're in that hole, it's just going to be all these thoughts. So that helps kind of calm down and quiet things down. But then there's always the fact that there has to be some movement. Okay, you can daydream about this 80-year-old, 90-year-old version of yourself, thinking about all the things that you were able to do. You think about that, but then how do you get there from there? Yeah. What is the next best thing that you could do for your future self right now that can push you towards that direction of how maybe you'd like yourself to, how maybe you'd like your life to be?
Like, what did that look like for you in those moments? I know you've been through these moments, right? In those moments, what did that look like for you? That like first step or that tiny thing you could do that brought you closer?
Oh, well, For me, that first step was actually just crying and like processing everything. It was all of that and just sitting in all the sadness of all the things that I was holding in and feeling that shame and then talking to people about it. It started with me talking to my friends also and my family and saying that I don't want this life anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be 80 and being in this same situation of sadness and discontent with the way that I have made all these choices.
Yeah.
And how can I do that? The only thing to do is to finally choose something differently. So in all of the things, looking at all the decisions I've made, what is that tiny decision? Or it really felt like a big decision. But what's the different thing, that one different thing that I could do? And that was just not repeating that same mistake, just choosing differently.
Yeah.
That helped so much. And it made me feel safer to make other different choices.
So what I'm going to reflect back to you, what I heard from you is you sat down and just accepted your situation and saw it for what it really is. You're not happy, you know? And I think the acceptance is a really big part of like, okay, I own this. This is where I'm at and I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when you're like, okay, I accept that this is what it is. Now, everything I've been doing clearly is not working because this is where I am crying my heart out, you know, and thinking I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
And also not blaming others
and
and
not
everything
blaming.
else. I think it was all that because we always thought to be like, oh
my
hey,
God,
they broke my heart. They were the mean ones. But then you're like, well, why were they there?
Yeah, that is actually the biggest, I would say, pitfall where people aren't able to climb out is when they get stuck in the whole blame game. Like, I'm the victim. It's somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
You know, they broke up with me. They fired me. They treated me this way. I never get any opportunity. So when you're stuck there, it's like you can't even climb out, right? You're like suspended in that space of like, you know, it's unfair.
Woe
you
is
know,
me. Woe is
why
my
me?
life.
Woe is me? Why me? You know, and that just doesn't get you anywhere. So definitely, if you're there, snap out of it, right? So we don't want to be there, but we want to get to acceptance. We want to get to like acknowledgement. We want to get to the point where we're thinking that's not working. So what do I need to do differently? And I think that is the most, you know, powerful lesson from your story is it's about taking stock of where you are and deciding, is this how you want it to be? Or if you want something different, make a different choice. Just start with one tiny choice.
Yeah.
In your case, let's cry it out and let's talk to people. And then what next? What happened next for you?
It helps to be honest also, like incredibly brutally honest to yourself. It says like, I've always tried to understand my feeling between like being brutally honest. Like it feels so harsh, but sometimes you already know the answers are always already there. You just don't want to listen to it. But if you open it up, open your heart and you sit down with all of that and be like, what do we really want?
Yeah.
What do we not want? What kind of life do we want to live? Are all of these aligned? Are the choices we've made so far aligned with that kind of life that we would want? What other situations have we put ourselves in that maybe do not make sense anymore? How can we maybe calibrate or maybe remove ourselves from those things? So it's those things. How can we get help as well? Are we around people that want the same things, that believe that we want that same kind of life as well? And then how can we also balance that out?
I think a lot of people struggle with what they want, you know, because they don't feel worthy or deserving of it.
Right.
Right. And because of that, I don't want to put myself out there.
Yeah.
But you're like the queen of vulnerability. So talk to me about that. How do you just put yourself out there? Be vulnerable. Kind of let yourself just, you know, maybe fail and make mistakes and grow and learn, you know, considering you may not feel the best about yourself when you're starting out. You know, you may not feel like you deserve to have this better life or this dream that you want. Maybe you're not good enough for that, right? So a lot of people have those thoughts that they're overthinking as well, is like all the reasons why they shouldn't have something better than the situation they're in.
Yeah. I think that's the gift of hitting rock bottom. And I think a lot of people will always reach a certain rock bottom in their life. And there is that gift where you have nowhere else to go. And what else is there to lose?
Yeah.
And if it's already gone and you don't, or well, it feels like you have nothing and you're grasping at straws or you don't know where you're holding on to, what else is there to lose? How I think that was a really great question that I came across learning from you as well. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And when you find that, oh, it's not as bad as you would think it is. Like, okay, putting yourself out there, putting out into the world that you did all these stupid mistakes before. Okay, what are they gonna do about it? Oh, they'll judge you. Yeah, don't worry. I judged myself already. I know why it's worth judging. I know what led to this, and that.
Yeah.
And if you face all these things and you sit down as well and face all the biggest fears behind that fear, then it kind of, the power fizzles away.
Yeah.
And that's always the beauty of being in rock bottom. I would think.
What I love about what you said is that whole idea of the power fizzling out, right? Because our fear is only as big as we make it.
Yeah.
Right? And the minute we're like, okay, so what's the worst that'll happen? They'll judge me? Okay. All right, they're going to judge me. I'm just going to accept that they do. And then suddenly the fear that you have, which is so big, like you said, it fizzles. I love that. I love that like visual. It just like dissipates. Like, it's just like, shh. And then you're like, oh, I guess that's not so bad, right? I've taken so many clients and students through this question. What's the worst that'll happen? And they start off with this like big drama in their head, this big like fear or this big idea of how terrible the situation is. And then, okay, what's the worst? And then, and they're like, oh yeah, actually, I've already been through that. Or actually, it's not that bad. So by the end of this whole fear loop, you realize, okay, I can actually handle it. It's not that bad. And that allows them to kind of be like, okay, now I can actually move forward from here because I'm no longer staring at this big fear. It's now become this tiny little, like, mosquito that I just need to kind of like swat away. Woo! And I'm going to walk forward. So I love how you said that. But having said that, healing is messy. It's complicated. It's got layers.
Never stops.
It has, it has seasons. Every phase has its own like, flavor, and it can be raw, it can be loud, and it can be humbling all at the same time. So what is the biggest, I would say, lesson you've taken from your healing journey that you wish other people knew? Okay, because it is going to be all of these things. It's not going to be like the easy thing to do. But you've been through it and you've come completely on the other side of it, and you're continuing to walk forward. But like, what do people need to know about the healing journey?
One thing that I wish a lot of people know, or even what I wish I knew then, is that healing isn't this perfect final stage where when you reach it, everything's good and you're just gonna coast through life, floating through it. Because I think that's what stops a lot of people from putting in the work, doing the work, and getting into the healing journey. Because they think it's this perfect thing that you're always going to have to reach this, if it was like some type of graduation at the end, some medal that you're going to get, and you're going to be free from all of that. Because it's still going to be a continuous process as you peel back all these layers. You reach this step, and there's unlocked stages yet again. And as daunting as it can be when you think about it, no, it never ends. There's also magic in it because, then that means that there's more people to meet in the next journeys. There are more opportunities to get to know ourselves deeper. And, we can dig into things that we thought weren't that big of a deal, that we can finally it's time to shine light on this. And it's also part of the journey. I mean, you don't really watch a film and it's all just like easy going all throughout. You need a little bit of flavors.
Yes.
All these little plot twists here and there
Yeah.
to make life worth living. And when you think about this short life that we live, how would you want to live this life? by doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, it is a journey. That is a choice made by many as well, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I think that's where healing helps. That it comes in many forms.
Yeah.
And it changes along with you. And there's so much wonder in discovering all of that.
And this is kind of a very natural kind of next step for us, is to understand what is the benefit. Why do we do it? Why should we do it? What do we get from it? Because I feel like we spend a lot of time telling our listeners that, okay, it's hard, it's messy, it's all of these things, and it is. But let's talk a little bit, Joelle, about the beauty of it. Let's talk about what we find. Let's talk about who we become. So what is that experience for you? How have you grown in that sense?
Oh my gosh. I think it's waking up and being excited and feeling like there's harps playing in your ear and it's so light because you worked hard for it.
Yeah.
And there's so much love around you because that was like a product of the choices that you've made, the messy ones, the really hard ones, the things that you would want to hopefully avoid. That's what it feels like. It's like you can breathe again.
Yeah.
More deeply and more openly. And I think despite the messiness, the turbulence of it and the chaos, it's such a wonderful high.
Yeah.
Knowing that, okay, I'm just gonna do everything I can. Knowing that because we've experienced that before, that clarity and how everything is working out so easily, it's like, oh, okay, then I guess this is worth it. Having to go through all of that, there's always that period. It doesn't, it won't last. It's not forever as it should, because again, we're going to all these next stages, but it's always worth it.
You know, when you said turbulence, there's this image that came to mind of like going on a trip, right? So when we're going on a trip, on a holiday to a new place, you got to do your research. You got to pack for the trip. You know, you got to make sure you have everything you need. Maybe you have to buy a few things. Mm-hmm. And then you got to get to the airport. And, maybe there's some mishaps along the way, misconnections. You're sleepless. You can't sleep on the flight, whatever. There are all this stuff that could happen along the way. And then there might be some major turbulence on the flight. So it's like the whole part of getting to this place you're going to go on holiday could be full of all these different ups and downs, and it might be uncomfortable and it might be a lot of work. But when you land in this place and you go on these different like tours and you walk in this new place and see new sights and meet different people and eat like amazing food. You're like, oh my God, this is so worth it, And it's like all new experiences, and you see yourself differently too in these new places you're visiting, because you kind of almost fall into the energy of the space. So that's what I was thinking about is, yes, it's even a journey to get to the next, that big journey, that trip you want to take, but that's what healing is like in a way, and every time we go through something, it's a new trip. Yeah. It's a new adventure.
And despite knowing that there's going to be a lot of like, you'd go here, you'd maybe eat the wrong dish at some point. Maybe you'd get into an argument with someone, probably also get scammed. That happens a lot.
All you know,
but people keep doing it because, especially those who love to travel, they keep doing that for that moment of when you open your eyes the next day and it's a beautiful day. You pull the windows, the curtains back, and you're like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
This is worth it.
This is worth it. And this is like, I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I got here.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it feels like, right? And, they say when you go on a trip, you come back different. It's changed you, It's the same thing. With healing, we come back completely, I think, evolved or like expanded. I like that word. Yeah. I wanted to pick the right word. Expanded versions of ourselves.
Yeah, and
You
there's so
know?
much of it. It's like you're just overflowing with that
Overflowing.
energy, and I think that's what's beautiful about it is you don't even notice sometimes. Oftentimes you don't, but then it becomes like a ripple of golden wave of joy, a golden wave of joy with other people, and that brings them to their
Yeah.
own journey as well.
Oh my God, everyone listening, I know you want some of that gold ripple and all that she's talking about. I love it. I love it. It really is a great way to describe the healing journey. And I can feel your emotion too. I can feel that this conversation in a way was a bit therapeutic, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Like to kind of
beautiful.
reflect back. This has been an absolutely heartwarming conversation. I've really loved everything we've talked about. I
So
feel
fuzzy and
yeah, I know.
I feel like
I
I got
feel
a
it too
massage.
in my heart. But we end every episode with the Project Loving Myself mantra that you would like to share with our audience, with our listeners, something that has helped you, connected to self-love or love, anything that you feel could inspire our listeners or help our listeners.
It's so crazy being a listener of your podcast for all these years and not even thinking that there was that. I forgot that that was happening at the end. And I wish I prepared and thought deeper. But then what actually came up here as a mantra to end this is you're here, you're breathing, you're living life. And that is just the most amazing gift just by being here.
Yeah,
So
presence.
take it all in
Yeah.
and enjoy the ride.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that because when I think of you, it's really about living the life is what matters. It's just about being here and living your life, not overthinking too much of where, how, what. And it's amazing because your podcast is the what if, right? It's the what if question. So maybe we can pause on the what ifs for a while and just live, like truly live. And I think a lot of people need to get their what ifs answered to get to that point in their life where it's like, okay, I'm here. I'm here. I'm breathing. I'm present. And that is the most beautiful thing. Joelle, thank you so much for joining me today on Project Loving Myself.
What an honor. So happy to be here. Thank you so much, Sanaya.
All right, Joelle, tell people how they can find you, follow you, listen in on your podcast, give them your deets.
Dearest overthinkers, I know there's a lot of us here. I hope you find a safe space in my podcast. It's called Paano Kung. It's where we answer, ruminate on all the what ifs of life. I never give the answers. I never do. Because it always comes from you listening. And the goal is always at the end of all the what ifs, we live through it to find the what is, the what is. So I'm Paano Kung, it's Paano Kung Podcast, and I'm at Joelle OL everywhere.
Beautiful. So that wraps up our episode with Joelle, overthinker in chief, as she has claimed that role, storyteller, and living proof that your life doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be lived. So if there's one thing that you take from today's episode, let it be this. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just have to show up for yourself and be present and recognize you're here. Thank you for joining us on Project Loving Myself. Episodes release every Wednesday. You can follow at Project Loving Myself podcast. Follow me at Sanaya Gurnamal. And honestly, write in. I know you have so much to say about this episode with Joelle, so drop me a DM. I'd love to share. I'll tag Joelle, of course. And, thank you for doing that, for connecting with me every single time. Just remember, your vulnerability isn't a liability. It is literally the doorway to deeper connection with others and especially with yourself. Until next time, keep loving yourself, keep healing, and keep putting yourself out there. Because even when it gets messy, you were never meant to play small. You are loved.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.